All right, what's up, squad? Happy to be bringing you this training on next level sales. And basically, the subtitle here is What Lies Underneath. And we're going to be talking about human behaviors when it comes to your sales conversations and how you can help increase your win probabilities when you're closing your sales. So we're going to jump right into this. Let me just move this. Let me move me out of the way here for a second. All right, cool. So becoming a high performer in sales. So we have to understand a few things. Technology has completely disrupted the sales process. Consumers have an unprecedented access to product and service information these days, and they have more control over the sales process. And they also have a multitude of options from which to choose from. So no longer do the following things ensure your success. So a traditional selling skill set, controlling the sales process, or even a commanding knowledge of your product or service, as well as nailing a great pitch. So these are no longer going to be those tools that ensure that you can separate yourself from the pack. These are all but obsolete. So just like I said a second ago, you have to separate yourself from the pack. You have to be unique. You have to be different. You must possess these qualities. You need to be able to hold the short attention span of distracted buyers, be in control of your own emotions, and you need to be masterful when it comes to interpersonal skills, influence frameworks, and excuse the typo there, and human relationships. So where do we start? Well, that's a good question. How about here? We need to make sure that we stop trying to sell people on our products, our programs, what our prices are, the features are, and solutions, because you're only going to sound like every other coach out there and you're going to be ignored. Something I want you to think about. Your customer, their first foray into finding a coach or a program is probably not you. You are not going to be their first experience. And they are going to have probably a huge background of experiences with people in sales. And that, in and of itself, can literally dilute how they view you when you're trying to sell them into your program, because they may have had multiple bad experiences in dealing with salespeople. So keep that in mind. Very important. Okay, so now that we get that out of the way, so what should we be doing instead? Well, how about this? How about creating an emotionally satisfying experience for your prospect? That's literally it. Okay, so yeah, I know, but I mean, what does that mean, right? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. We're going to talk about strategies that empower you in the areas of psychological strategies that leverage human behavior frameworks and some cognitive biases to influence buying behaviors of your prospects. Sounds fancy, right? But it's really not. It's not. So let's dive in. Number one, to buy is human. People act on emotion and they justify with logic. Now, that's something I want you to repeat over and over in your head. People act on emotion and justify with logic. If this is true, which it is, then emotions drive our buying decisions. So let's look at some scenarios here. Karen is a banking exec, and she makes a $500,000 software decision because she likes the account executive better than the other competitor, because she appreciated a thoughtful birthday card that he sent. Literally, a $500,000 decision hinged upon whether or not she received a birthday card. That's emotion. George pays Michelle for the same mattress because he feels like she actually cared about solving his needs than the competitor did, who probably just talked about the features of the mattress. Again, emotion. So you see what I mean here? We can say all day long that emotions do not come into play, but we would be wrong. Take this research study. I found this very interesting. A liquor store played German beer German beer hall music on Tuesdays and French music on Wednesdays. Correspondingly, beer sales went up on Tuesdays and wine sales went up on Wednesdays. Who'd have thought? But when patrons were asked by people conducting the study why they bought, they justified with logic. So they made statements like, well, it was recommended by a friend. I like the taste of premium beer. I saw it in a magazine. I'm cooking steak tonight, et cetera, right? So they're buying on emotion and surrounding, and then they're justifying and validating with logic. But wait a second. So Shane, are you saying that program features, quality, specs, service, integration, price, and all these other tangibles don't matter? No, I'm not saying that at all. They all matter. And absolutely, if you have any deficiency in any of those areas, it could eliminate you at any point from having your customer being in a buying window with you. I am simply saying that your prospects do not buy it based on logic. They validate with it. So the secret sauce, if you can begin to understand how emotions dominate and drive the buying decision, then you can literally increase your sales exponentially. When you can influence emotions of your prospects while controlling your own, you will find yourself in the driver's seat more times than not. Dealing with emotions can be difficult, and sometimes it's hard to wrap our head around them. But let's try. All right. One of my favorite quotes from The Big Short, the movie The Big Short. The truth is like poetry, but people fucking hate poetry. And it's so very true. Here's a fact and a painful one when you realize that this may be you. It is so much easier to pitch the features of your program than to tune into the emotions of the person that is sitting across from you. Let me say that again. It is easier for you to pitch features of your program than to tune into the emotions of the person who is coming to you seeking a solution to their problem. So if I'm being brutally honest with you, is that you can pitch, challenge, teach, coach, offer insight all you want, but it's not going to matter because people buy for their reasons, not yours. And way too often I see coaches project their reasoning onto their prospects. It's not going to work. People buy for their reasons, not yours. Think about this. Every time you or your sales team meet with a prospect, emotional worlds are going to collide. So most people that are in sales begin from a position of logic, i.e. talking about program, features, price, etc., and then shift toward emotion over the course of the process. Whereas buyers begin from a position of emotion and then over time shift towards logic. So knowing these two things, why is it that the following almost always happens? At the beginning of the sales process, the buyer is probably thinking, do I like you? They want to know if they can trust you. Do they like you enough to give you their money? At the exact same time, the seller is delivering a pitch on program features that they think will generate interest from the buyer. Congratulations, you just became unlikable. And to compound that, when you reach the end of this buying process and the prospect is now asking rational questions and bringing up objections, you now become emotional to the rejection that you're receiving, and you become desperate to not to lose the sale. And that is when I see a lot of people in sales go on the defensive at that point. Do you see how those two things just like crossed over and were completely at separate ends of the spectrum? Very, very intriguing, very unique. So we need to paint a picture. First and foremost, we need to be disruptive in that we need to be different. If you fall into the same dull pattern that is indicative to every other salesperson out there, you're going to lose more often than not. Like, why is your message any different than Coach Joe down the street? Okay. You may think it is, but to that buyer, it sounds like the same thing, the same exact pitch. So when you disrupt your prospects' expectations, you actually draw them to you. Okay. Think of it like this. They're going to be seeing all these new bright colors in the picture you're painting for them. And all of a sudden, talking to you has become a different experience for them because of what they've been exposed to before. All of a sudden, now you're this new thing. So now they're interested. Now they're intrigued. Different is sexy. Different sells. You have now become the bright, shiny object, not your program. So here's the thing that we have to face. Just because we get it doesn't mean our prospects do. So it stands to reason that you possess an above average IQ. Let's face it, if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be in the entrepreneurial space. You most likely possess some of these qualities. You're curious. You rapidly assimilate and learn new information. You can see the bigger picture. You hold yourself to higher standards. And you have above average reasoning skills. But there's also a dark side to this. Because we have these qualities, we can easily damage relationships through impulsiveness, impatience, talking down to people, talking over people, failure to listen to people and hear them out until they're done speaking, failure to empathize with others, and overwhelming people with elaborate solutions to very basic problems, just so that we can sound important. Ow. I bet that last one stung a bit, right? Been there, done that. Again, you have to remember, this is about them. It's never about you. So how do you increase your odds of winning? So the problem is what usually happens. A little quote from Aristotle there. And I'm going to be completely upfront with you. Guys, listen to me. There is no one size fits all solution for every sales situation. Context matters. So you need to be able to adapt and adjust to each situation presented to you. Because we're in the people business. We're in the relationship business. You're dealing with individual people with individual needs. Okay? So you cannot have a one-size-fits-all solution for each and every person you sit down with. There is no magic script. There's no easy button. There's no magic pill. There is no holy grail. I'm sorry. It doesn't exist. Anybody trying to sell you that is full of shit. Period. You just got to put in the reps. As some of us have been doing here recently, going for the no. Putting yourself out there. So, how do we win more and lose less? You have to prospect. Number one, you have to prospect. You need to be continuously prospecting. This is your business. This is the landscape you have entered. This is part of the process. This is something that you need to do. Always qualifying. Always in discovery, qualifying, making sure that your leads are qualified leads. Plain and simple. You need to be in alignment. You need to be in alignment with your message. You need to be in alignment with your confidence. You need to be in alignment completely around. You need to come into every situation, to every customer, every prospect, whatever you want to call them, completely in alignment and confident that you're the solution to their problem. And you need to have a basic to thorough understanding of emotional intelligence and how to influence your prospects' buying behaviors. So increasing sales drive. So high performers share one critical trait, and that trait is drive. They are driven. And most entrepreneurs are, or they wouldn't be entrepreneurs. But you have to have some drive behind you. You have to have optimism, competitiveness, and have a need for achievement. And then, people ask, are these traits just innate? Are they just part of my DNA? And yes, some of these are interwoven into your DNA, but they can be learned as well. So the answer is yes to both. There are three things that you can control in this situation, and that's your actions, your reactions, and your mindset. And you must also possess two beliefs. You must have a belief and expectation that you're always going to win. You need to be assumptive when it comes to sales. You need to go into every consult knowing that you're coming out of this solving someone's problem and serving them at the highest level. I am the solution. There is no one better than me. And the other belief is everything happens for a reason. So, unfortunately, when you expose yourself to the practice, we want to make sure that we're not exposing ourselves to desperation. Most people in sales spend most of their time in feast or famine mode. It's because prospecting is not a priority and it's irregular at best, and you only do it with intensity when you hit rock bottom. Like when there's no one left, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to just dive in. I'm going to start prospecting really hard and really heavy. No, you should have been doing that all along. It's part of your business. It's part of the landscape. It is a continual process. This is when you face the universal law of need, which governs desperation. The universal law of need states that the more you need something, the less likely you will get it because you are simply acting out of desperation. It is at this point that you're going to only start focusing on what will happen if you fail. We've all been here. Okay? This is all that's going to happen. It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen if I don't make rent? Oh my God, what's going to happen if I can't pay the bills? Right? What's going to happen? What am I going to lose? How am I going to fail if this doesn't happen? So this ends up resulting in lowered self-esteem, lack of confidence, irrational behavior, and poor decision making. And guys, think about this. Doesn't this sound like your own clients that you're coaching? And what are you telling them? That the things that they're not doing, they need to be doing because it's a part of their process. And yet here we are exhibiting the same behaviors by avoiding a part of ours. Don't do that to yourself. So, in closing, we need to separate ourselves from the pack. We need to start creating emotionally satisfying experiences. Remember that our prospects buy on emotion and then they justify with logic. You have to meet them where they are at, not where you're at. Paint a picture with bright colors that draws them in. Make their experience talking to you completely outside the norm of what they're expecting. Remember, there is no magic pill, no holy grail. It's just putting in the reps. You have got to get the experience of just being in front of people and talking to people and having these conversations. You've got to work on increasing your sales drive attributes, making sure that you're being competitive, etc. Submit your calls for review. I really cannot emphasize this enough. I know some of you are just not with it, whatever the case may be. But the more you submit your calls and the more that we can look at them together, the more value we are going to get out of that so that you can continually improve your sales process. And last but not least, guys, avoid the desperation trap. Do the boring things, like Will has been saying. Do the boring work that you need to do day in and day out that ensures that your business, your machine operates smoothly, operates with intent, operates with success, not out of fear or desperation. I hope you guys have enjoyed this training. Now get out there, go meet your prospects where they're at, and start closing down some more sales. Looking forward to talking to you guys again soon. Have a great weekend.